Aloha, Monroe Murdoch, broker owner of Love Hawaii Realty and Love Hawaii Villas, and we wanted to bring you an updated Hawaii travel, tourism, and vacation planning update. We are doing this video from our new office in Kapolei on West Oahu, not far from the Ko'olina Resort. And even in the midst of the global pandemic, we are excited to have this new office space, finally have it done and able to work from here. So please do remember to like and subscribe, share this video with other people who may be interested in the latest updates about Hawaii travel. At the end of this video, I plan to do a little screen sharing, if you will. We'll jump onto my computer, show you a few different things, kind of get into a few other details there. Obviously, you can do your own searching online. You can look at Star Advertiser website, Hawaii News Now, other information. There is the Hawaii Tourism Authority site. I'll show you a little bit of that towards the end of this video. We'll plan to do that. Definitely a lot happening here. It has been a while since we've done an update, and that is due in large part to the fact that there really hasn't been much in the way of forward progress made until recently with regards to the opening of Hawaii for tourism. As you may know, there was a target date of October 1st for quite a while now, and up until recently, that was still the official date that was to be the target for visitors to be able to possibly test out of the 14-day quarantine. In recent days, there has been, you could say, like a flurry of activity between the Governor David Ige, the Lieutenant Governor Josh Green, the mayors, particularly the mayor of Honolulu County, Document Caldwell. So we'll have some of this information and links I can put down in the description. Suffice it to say that finally, after what feels like forever, and which has literally been about 6 months or more, the officials here in Hawaii seem to be finally trying to figure out a way to get tourism going legitimately. It is not a full opening up of Hawaii for sure, as many of you probably already would expect. It does have many restrictions in place. However, it is at least a step in the right direction. So this video is really not intended to be a call to everyone to, hey, come to Hawaii right now and book your travel and make it happen. It's really just to provide more information to you so that you can look at that information, you can make a decision. Naturally, we'd love to have everyone come to Hawaii who can travel safely, stay in our vacation properties and things like that. However, as of today's recording, around September 24th, September 25th, there is a lot that can happen between now and October 15th. And so we just keep that in mind that we are seeing an uptick in bookings. We are seeing people feeling more confident, putting dates out there on the calendar, which is great. And we are cautiously optimistic is kind of what we're saying, that this is looking like we could see some good things happen. So certainly you have to look at that. You have to look at the information and see what you want to do. Look at the flights, look at the accommodation options, consider the testing options. And again, I think there will be more encouraging information coming in the next few days, really the next few weeks. Hopefully within the next 1 to 2 weeks, we can really see it firm up and solidify into a legitimate game plan, as well as having the viable testing options available as well. So I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty right now in my commentary, but we will get into a little bit of that later on in the video when I go into a couple different websites. And keep in mind, it's not fully ironed out, but what we have right now is a plan to be able to have an option by October 15th to be able to test out of the mandatory 14-day quarantine by providing a negative COVID test within about 72 hours of the final leg of your flight here. If you can provide that upon arrival, great. There's an option to be able to bypass the quarantine. If you don't have the results back just yet, then the idea is you would need to quarantine in place until those negative tests could come back. And so there are a few considerations there. They're still working on things related to children under the age of 12 being able to get the testing needed. And that's where we expect to hear some updates. As of right now, they have a partnership with CVS and with Kaiser Permanente. However, travelers could essentially get a test from whoever would be willing to provide it. It will vary state by state. Some states may have free testing at certain locations or hospitals. It needs to be a certain type of test, and it needs to go through a certain type of lab process. That information is on the sites and the links that we can share. And so there are a few things like that where you can't just show up and expect to come and vacation in Hawaii right now without first meeting certain criteria. The good news is a lot of people do want to come to Hawaii, and also that the local officials are finally coming together with a plan to make it happen. It has been a very difficult 6 months. It has been a roller coaster, to say the least. It's been frustrating that the state officials and local officials have not really been able to roll out a viable plan until starting to do that now. Been several attempts, but the other kind of variable or unknown is if there are a considerable spike in cases, if we feel like cases are going up and up, keep in mind the local officials may want to scale stuff back. And so it's a cautious and careful reopening. And we will definitely speak to that more in the coming weeks as more information becomes available. Just a couple of things I wanted to mention real quick before we dive into some other information. And I wanted to just share a little bit with you about kind of what to expect here in the coming weeks and coming months, and also to prepare travelers to know how to best plan for your trip in terms of what is sort of a day in the life like, and how can you expect to be here and traveling and interacting with those of us who live here permanently. What is it currently like here? What's the culture of the nature of things here with COVID-19, the current mindset, I guess, if you will. So let's talk about that for a minute. I think that'd be really good information for you to know about. So as you prepare to come to Hawaii, it is very important that you understand that here locally, everyone wears masks. And I just say it matter-of-factly and directly because I see it as being an important component of successful tourism resuming here in Hawaii, is that Hawaii is not California, it's not New York, it's not Oregon, it's not Utah, it's not Texas, it's not Illinois, it's not Nebraska, it's not Florida. It is its own state, it's its own unique culture here. Hawaii probably has one of the most unique local cultures of any state in the country. Each state, of course, is very unique. You know, Hawaii is a little different in the sense that we are out here so far away, so isolated. We do have a heavy influence from the Asian countries, from Japan, from Pacific Island countries. And there is an underlying culture and an underlying principle here that operates locally, which is essentially compliance. You know, there is a level of respect within the built-in culture, respect for your elders, respect for people in positions of authority. And I know that this may go contrary to what some visitors may feel, may believe, may personally represent wherever you may live. And I get that. I respect that. I was not fully born and raised in Hawaii. I did spend some time here growing up, but I predominantly grew up between California and Utah. So I have a certain set of thoughts and beliefs that largely pertain maybe to those geographic areas and whatnot. Regardless, it's important when you come to Hawaii to respect the local traditions and to respect the local tendency to compliance. Meaning, if you come here to vacation, when you go to the store, when you go to restaurants, when you go out in public places, there will be an expectation and probably a requirement for a while that you wear a mask when out and about. So my wife actually started a little handmade mask making business. This is one that she made for me and that I use pretty much every day. And I have, you know, other masks, but it's not necessarily a plug for her business, but I'm just saying, you know, the masks are very much a part of day-to-day life here. And what I don't want to see happen is I don't want to see visitors coming here disrespecting the local population, refusing to wear a mask when going to the store or going to a restaurant or a place where a mask would be expected, and making this about politics or making this about personal freedom or liberty or independence and all these things. Look, I'm conservative and I don't love wearing a mask. I really don't like wearing a mask, okay? However, I wear it every day when required, when needed, when it's necessary and appropriate here. And that is a simple ask of people that come to Hawaii, is respect the local culture, respect that. Even if you normally don't wear a mask at home, don't like that, it's just simply a matter of respect. It doesn't mean you're having to be forced to do something, giving up something, but what you're doing is you're avoiding potential issues where someone here locally, some might not like that. If there are a bunch of visitors to Hawaii not wearing masks, it could give local population an argument or a reason to say, hey, we should not let visitors in because they are disrespecting our expectation on the masks, okay? So again, I'm not intending or wanting to make anything political or anything controversial, but I think it's important to bring it up, and I want to include it here because my intent is to help people have a great time while they're here. You can have a great time, you can enjoy yourself, you can respect the local expectations on the mask rule. You don't have to wear it all the time. You know, when you're at the beach, when you're doing different things, it's not like you have to wear it 24/7, you know, but I just want to prepare you and manage the expectations properly for you so that if you come here, don't be surprised if you choose not to wear a mask if people call you out on it, because it is, again, very compliant local culture. If you live here, if you're a permanent resident in Hawaii and you refuse to wear a mask out in these public places or stores where you're expected to, required to, you will get pushback and you may not be allowed to even enter some places of business. Do I agree with the mandate, the blanket mandate? Not necessarily. I think it's pushing it. However, it's what we got going on over here right now. So I think it's important just to understand that. Again, I'm just sharing information that I feel will be helpful as we work towards the reopening of Hawaii for tourism. I hope that we can reach a point where we don't all have to be wearing masks, that we can, you know, get back to some sense of normalcy in that regard. However, the new normal in Hawaii is when you're out in public and interacting with different people, everybody has a mask on. And so I just wanted to prepare you for that in case you were not aware of that reality. Now, you know, when you're hanging out at the beach, when you're in the ocean, you know, doing different activities, if you're distanced from others, if you're out exercising and whatnot, like, you don't need to wear a mask, you know, and the dynamic will change. You know, by the time you watch this video, weeks or months down the road, maybe what I'm saying right now is totally irrelevant. But I'm sharing it now today, the end of September 2020, because it is relevant. And I feel like it's relevant enough that I want to make it part of the dialogue, because I want to be, you know, open and transparent with people about my perspective as someone who's living here and kind of seeing and observing. And the bottom line is there are some people who are very nervous about the idea of reopening Hawaii to tourism, and rightfully so. You know, they have a right to be nervous. They have a right to be concerned. You know, even with the test out options and different things in place, there is still going to be an increased likelihood that people traveling to Hawaii some of them could be carrying coronavirus and could be potentially causing community spread when that happens. There's no perfect system. There's no perfect solution, but we cannot continue to keep Hawaii shut down either. And I think the powers that be are finally realizing that we just can't keep it shut down much longer. So thank you for, you know, bearing with me on this little dialogue on it. And again, I just encourage you to set aside any, you know, predetermined notions and feelings you have regarding mask wearing to the extent that you can. And if you are so hell-bent on not wearing a mask no matter what, I'll just be frank with you. Don't come to Hawaii yet. You know, just don't. Because it is that important of an issue. You know, wait until things are more lenient, where mask rules are not so strict. But if you're one of those people who literally is going to refuse to wear a mask, going to a store, going to a restaurant, things like that, it's not going to go well. It's just not. You know, it's not going to be well received and well respected here. And you're just asking for trouble, and you're going to create issues. Okay, so don't shoot the messenger. You know, I'm just here to help and to try to help facilitate. And again, if we manage expectations, and if expectations can kind of be kept within certain parameters, then you know what you're getting into. You know what you're coming out here to do and to have fun doing. But it's just one of those things. I mean, if you have questions or concerns about that, feel free to let me know. I know this is kind of a long little dialogue on it, but we will be incorporating little snippets of this kind of concepts into what we're sharing, because it is an important component of the local culture on Oahu, on Kauai, on Big Island, on Maui, every island. Okay, it's a local culture thing, and it's a compliance thing. It's a tradition thing. It's a respect for authority thing, and you know, it's just one of those things. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you have a couple masks for every person, whatever. I mean, you can get masks here, but you'll be traveling with them anyway. So just keep that in mind. All right, so let's jump in, take a look at some of this information, and please let us know if you have any questions. Feel free to add comments. Welcome your feedback on any of this. All right, so we'll just take a few minutes to go through a few resources here. I'll include links in the description. This is the HTA website, Hawaii Tourism Authority, their COVID-19 page, and you can see that you can get updated information here. They are already talking about the pre-travel testing program to begin October 15th. Both residents and visitors arriving from out of state to Hawaii are still subject to a mandatory 14-day self-quarantine. However, pre-travel testing program is scheduled to begin on October 15th. Okay, this will get into some of those details regarding negative test results from a test administered to the traveler within 72 hours from the final leg of departure will be exempt from the 14-day mandatory quarantine. So you can get more information here, and this little graphic is helpful. I'll just run through this really quick. Just move myself over here. Take a pre-travel test or quarantine for 14 days. Here are the steps. And I would just say, don't come to Hawaii to quarantine for 14 days. That does not sound like fun. All right, here we go. Take the test within 72 hours of arrival, get a negative result. Travel to Hawaii, do the declaration form, minimize interactions and monitor. No state restrictions, you're good to go. Track 2 here, take test within 72 hours of arrival. Results are still pending. Travel, do the declaration form, quarantine here in Hawaii until the negative results get back in. Once you get the negative results, minimize interactions, monitor yourself, and you're good to go. 3 here is no test, travel, come here and quarantine for 14 days. After that, then you can do whatever. When you're quarantining, you can only leave for medical emergencies. It's a very strict quarantine. So option 1 obviously will be most preferable, getting that negative result in place prior to your traveling, but within that 72-hour window there. And then that way you don't have to do any quarantining at all. Now down here at the bottom, positive test at any time, you have to stop, you have to isolate. Symptoms at any time, stop and get treated immediately. Now, if you are subject to quarantine, that'll be for the 14 days or the length of your stay, whichever period of time is shorter. And that kind of covers that one. On the Star Advertiser website, you can go see the video that Mayor Kirk Caldwell did. If you want to watch any of that, he unveils his new recovery framework for COVID-19 response on Oahu. So Honolulu County governs all of Oahu, and he goes through the details of that. This article is pretty good in covering the gist of it. And there are different comments here regarding businesses, what can be reopening. Keep in mind, we are just coming off of a stay-at-home order, essentially, with a lot of things shut down. And so in the coming weeks between now, about September 25th, and the October 15th timeframe, the expectation is that a lot of things will be reopening. Keep in mind, a lot of attractions and things won't be fully open. There will still be different restrictions in place. You won't have 100% of businesses open. So if you're coming in the early days of the reopening, let's say, late October or November, still be great things to do. Go to the beach, hike, see the sights. There just may not be as many, activities or tours or luau's or things like that as you might be accustomed to. I mean, that will all take some time, and it's not yet determined just how long that will take. Okay. City and County of Honolulu, the reopening plan, this is the PDF document that we can link to this. And it goes into details about some of that for those who might want to dig in deeper. If you go to Facebook, you can connect with Governor David Ige, Mayor Kirk Caldwell. There's the Star Advertiser has done some live streams, Q&A, with the governor and whatnot. And I think that's what this one is here. And so I can link to that as well. Lieutenant Governor Josh Green has done a great job doing updates and just keeping people apprised. He did a 1-hour segment on September 21st that has a lot of information in it. This was kind of like the beginning of the rolling out of these things, which everyone's been working on for a long time and talking about it a lot more seriously lately, which is good to see. This link here is from a Hawaii Tribune Herald article where Ige referred to no testing for keiki. Now, don't let this throw you off. And, at present, there's not really a good testing option for kids under the age of 12 via CVS or the Kaiser Permanente. However, there are other potential options. They're likely to put some other updates out here. And also, if you can find a test that meets the criteria, one that will be administered to children under the age of 12, that can work. And so there will be some potential workarounds here. A lot of it will depend on your area, what they offer. There's also the hope that there can be tests that will be more easily administered and faster results. And so, don't let a single news article throw you off like, oh, I can't come. However, it is a factor where everyone coming would need to be able to test negative. And so that needs to be considered for children and how that's going to work. And again, we don't have all the answers right now. So you'll need to kind of watch for updates on that one. This Hawaii News Now article, under the order, Oahu restaurants will have to keep diners' contact details for 28 days. I mean, there are a number of different articles on a lot of different subjects relative to the reopening and different restrictions and, bars remaining closed for a while. And And this was new to me. I mean, this was something new. I saw, wow, that's interesting. They're going to keep, patrons' contact info for 30 days. I'm sure that's just for the contact tracing methods they plan to do. And, so there's some interesting content out there like that. So a lot of different articles, information, resources. This is all very new within the last just few days rolling out. And as is typical fashion with, Hawaii and with these kind of updates that we're seeing is that, whoops, didn't mean to open that. But what we're seeing is that, they like to make the announcements and let us know what's going on, but without having all the answers. And they're trying to roll out information as fast as they can. Oftentimes these updates create more questions than answers. And the hope is that they can answer those questions in the coming days and weeks. The other hope is that case counts can remain relatively low or constant and not be spiking. One of the concerns I have is as you start reopening things up, are we going to see case counts rising? And is that going to cause them to retract some things? Hopefully not, because it is imperative that they do all they can to get tourism going and rebuilding at this time. So hopefully this information is helpful, and we'll be sure to include these links here below for you as well. Thank you again so much for watching the latest update here. Please do remember to like and to subscribe and share this video with anyone else who may find the information useful. And we'll see you in the next video. Aloha.